It's the Christian Beer Show.
As well. Now, when you talk about these animals not doing well in captivity, I started thinking about dogs, right? Don't dogs come from wolves, and aren't they like current dogs are very well accustomed to our lifestyle? Would
Yeah.
you agree?
I mean, they've been evolving alongside us for such a long time, for hundreds of years. And even cats as well. Everyone knows cats were around back in the days of um, all of the Egyptian goddesses and gods and all sorts of things over in Egypt. And domestication of dogs and cats has been around and has been prevalent for such a long time. And we actually share a lot of the same RNA strands as dogs. And that's why everyone's like, they're man's best friend. So
Wait, we share some RNA strands with dogs? Is that what you said?
we do. I don't know the specific names of them, but I know that there's like a huge branch of them that we actually share. But then again, we also share 50% of our DNA is the same as that of a banana. So, it just.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I must have seen a documentary when they track how you can grab a wolf and you kind of trap the wolf and then you start to domesticate it, and then like by the third generation they start looking like dogs. Like they literally change their shape just by being next to a human and in captivity to some extent, and lose some of the wilder side of them.
Yeah, and a lot of those domestic behaviors are actually referred to as neoteny in biology, which I don't know if you've ever heard of that terminology, but
No.
it's keeping a lot of those puppy-like traits or very young-like traits through generations, and so that's where you get that very sweet and unconditional love kind of behavior from a dog, even as an adult and well into their older years as adult dogs, and so they kind of retain those puppy-like traits that make them so lovable and so compassionate, and how much we love them. And it's just so easy to love a dog. I feel like they just want to make you the happiest human alive. Most of them do. And you can see this guy right here.
Yeah. Oh, he looks tired. He's done. He's done for the day.
Yeah, he had a good time camping. So
cool. All right. So you wanted to talk about relationships and experiences. I saw that you want to start your own podcast on relationships. Is that right?
I do. I've kind of flirted with the idea just because I love being able to talk to, anybody and everybody about their experiences and their moments in life that have kind of stood out among others. And I think relationships hold such a big place in our lives as humans, and whether that's platonic or romantic or family related, so I think that they have such a big impact on the way that we are as humans and how they mold us and shape us over time. So very interested in relationships.
Yeah, I think that relationships are one of the main ways through which you can grow as a person. If you see the other and if you see yourself while you're having a relationship, regardless of the kind of the relationship, whether it's romantic or a friendship or like whatever, and you can really detect things about you, about others. And that kind of, I feel like that's the feedback of the universe towards your own personality in a way that can really make you a better person if you pay attention to it.
Yeah. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're basically going to do a podcast and you're going to talk about relationships but what exactly? What do you mean?
So I'm kind of known for asking questions of people, which I'm sure that you've picked up on as far as like Instagram and social media goes. And I'm just interested on people's opinions and what they think. Okay, is this a red flag, or is this just something that's a little bit of a flaw in somebody? Or is this something I should be concerned about? Or have you experienced this, or have you experienced that? Or, just kind of opening people up to be able to even talk about those sorts of topics. Like, maybe they've experienced something that they feel like, nobody else in a relationship has experienced before. And you come to find out and do these surveys online, and it's like, no, like 90% of the people that you're interacting with online have experienced something similar, and you're not alone. And it's a point of connectivity to be able to have these conversations with people. So I'm really looking to kind of open up with questions and kind of interviewing people kind of like you're doing with me right now to kind of pick people's brains and make a point of connection for other people to listen to as well.
Got it. And when you say, so it sounds like you're wanting to ask tough questions, or are you wanting to have juicy questions, or both?
I
Like,
think a
give
little
me an
bit of
example.
everything. Like I could be like, oh, Christian, what's your favorite color? And then you could talk about your favorite color, and it could be something very simple. Or I could ask you one of my favorite questions, which might eventually be on the podcast if I actually move forward with it. But if you could relive one moment in your life again, exactly the way that you experienced it the first time, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you have one? Do you have? Now I'm thinking about it, but as I'm thinking about it, do you have one?
I do. So when I think back to that moment in my life, I'm in my backyard in South Carolina. I'm around the age of 8, and my parents would spend a lot of time gardening and in the natural area of the backyard. And my mom would be out there just helping because she would kill all the flowers, right? Like she does not have a green thumb at all. And my dad is like the master gardener. So I remember going outside a lot and being with them. And so around that age, my mom started drinking, and she ended up becoming an alcoholic and still is. But I remember this one day and specifically, and I can remember walking out to the backyard, and I've got a bag of goldfish in my hand. I'm ready to go see my parents gardening in the yard, and my mom has got on this bright engine fire red t-shirt, and it's just cotton. And she's got these Oshkosh bagosh type overalls that are just denim short overalls from like the 90s, these huge window glasses that are red rimmed. And she just looks so beautiful and so happy. And I just remember that moment so tangibly because that was right before she started drinking. So I think that that's the moment I wish I could relive, is before everything kind of came crashing down for our family and things started shifting and changing. But that was a very happy time. So.
Okay, so you sounds like you would relive it because it was happy. I was
Yes.
first thinking, oh, you want to change something, like, oh, okay. Got it. So it sounds like
Yeah.
things were awful after, and yeah, and then what? I don't know, like how much you want to talk about it, but like I guess that specifically here in Thrive, we really want to know what it is that made you who you are, and how you became that which you are, and why you're, and the person that you are, that is, I mean, I guess happy is not the perfect word because nobody's 100% happy, but what is making you feel very excited about life. And I feel like the majority of time, the people that do the best in their adult lives, sometimes they had a rough childhood. Sometimes they did, and they learn a lot of very useful from coping mechanisms to insights that led their future, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It definitely does. And I completely agree with you. I don't think anyone is ever really 100% happy, but we go through waves in life. And when we're on our ships and we're able to adjust our sails and kind of accept life for what it is, while also moving forward and doing our absolute best and learning from those choppy waves and those storms of life, and we're able to kind of move forward and take those experiences and make the best out of a bad situation. So.
Yeah. So I guess that makes me think about my own life, right? Like when I was younger, definitely had a like high school. My parents got divorced. It was like a little bit rough. I probably acted out, drank a little bit too much. Had a little bit of a crazy time over there, and I don't know. Afterwards, I feel like it helped me look at what is valuable in my life. I on the one side, I love adventures, and I'm never gonna stop having them. And then on the other side, it led me to value the moment, like problems where I would have an altercation with my parents. There was always an underlying real issue going on that I would not talk about, like just like addressing those things in the moment, every moment of my life. Opens your bandwidth to be completely honest, and through honesty you become who you are and who you want to be, and then you really start enjoying your life. So that's kind of like a very brief summary of my story. I don't know if you can relate at all to that.
Oh, for sure. And I think I struggle a lot more with acknowledging things in the present moment. As a child, I experienced a lot of neglect and not being heard. So being able to find my voice over the years, especially into my adulthood, has been really important for me in my journey, which I think a lot of people struggle with. And especially women, I think women are oftentimes muted or considered crazy or considered too emotional or, you know, what have you. And so it's really difficult to kind of find your voice and find truth in your voice. Like, are you really making up this situation or this confabulation in your mind, or is this really what you're experiencing in the moment, and kind of differentiating between what's actually happening in your emotions and kind of not taking that stigma to heart and really trusting yourself with what you're feeling and calling it out and being brave enough to call it out in the moment and sticking by what you're feeling and what you're thinking.
So true. Like, what I'm thinking right now in terms of what you're saying is that in some ways, and this happens for sure, I think more to women than men, that you're trying to be tamed into what's acceptable and then becoming this vanilla of a person so that most people will maybe appreciate you or like you, but it's not a real like. It's like a lukewarm. Yeah, she's nice. She's like this nice person. But when in reality, if you're your full self, inevitably some people are gonna hate you because the things that your proclivities are some other people's. Just thinking about your camping situation, there's a lot of people that would never do that, and. And just saying, you know what, camping's the best. Everybody, if there's anybody that would never do it, they suck. Then there's gonna be somebody's gonna get angry at you.
Oh, for
And
sure.
and you know, like just expressing your full spectrum of personality will alienate people, and I don't think that's a bad thing as long as you're thoughtful about it. And I agree, society nowadays it can be very ruthless to you if you don't speak your mind. Yeah,
I think
if
that
you
really
speak your mind, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I really think that it helps you figure out who your people are, you know, and I think it's so important to have a small circle that you can trust and that you have genuine moments with, as opposed to having a huge group of people that you might have a lot of surface level connections with, which I feel like in this day and age with social media, it's so common to have those surface level connections. It's so common to seek that validation at a surface level or in a surface level way, to get that kind of validation from strangers instead of talking to your friends and saying, hey, like, I'm feeling insecure, like, about X, Y, and Z. Have you ever felt this way? You're kind of posting something in hopes that somebody will validate you and that will make you feel better, but it's all temporary. It's like if you're playing a video game and you're automatically rewarded for some type of behavior, you're going to keep feeding into that loop, into that cycle. And it's that way I feel like in this day and age with people. And I would much rather say, okay, call up one of my best friends that I know from back home and tell them how I'm feeling, and that deeper connection is more rewarding to me than something that's surface level. But I think it's definitely hard in this day and age, and I'm thankful, and I don't know if you feel this way, but to be a part of an older generation who wasn't automatically thrown into the media and into the gaming world and into technology the way that younger generations are being thrown in.
I really believe that you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And if you're gonna have shallow friends, you're gonna become a shallow person yourself. I mean, nobody's truly shallow. In my mind, anybody that is just trying to behave at that level is trying to avoid a lot of deeper stuff going on with themselves, and that's fine. You can do that. I'm happy to help out as a psychiatrist to some people, but at the same time, if I want to be close to very deep and thoughtful people that have very strong opinions about the world, regardless of what those opinions are. Like a lot of my friends, I don't necessarily agree with what their view of the world is, but I find it so interesting and I find it very motivating. So yeah, I hear you. And, you know, I think that every generation has their own thing. Every generation will have their struggles, and it's inevitable. We are brought up into this world. We are coming into a family that has their own issues, coming into a society that has their own issues, depending on where you're born, the issues will be a little bit different. But inevitably, a part of growing as a person is differentiating what it is that is you from what it is that you have been told to do and not to do, and just like start breaking those rules that were created for you and start opening up your personality the best way you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So mental health, that's something that you want to
Yes.
talk about as well.
Yeah.
What
So did you?
specifically?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I have been a huge proponent of mental health for such a long time. I think it's just because of all of that I've experienced, and knowing that I haven't been alone in that either. I have so many friends who've experienced similar traumas and who have had parents with addiction issues or have grown up as a person of color or as someone of a different religion and been discriminated for it and have experienced their own personal traumas. And hearing those stories, it just kind of makes you realize and put into perspective that everyone goes through something. Everyone is hurt in some way or some form in their very crucial younger years. And it molds them into a certain, not into a certain type of person, but it can definitely shape them mentally. And I think that everybody could benefit from therapy. I've been in therapy for about 2 years now, and I wish I would have gone sooner. And it's been the most helpful thing in the world to me. I also worked at a behavioral therapy camp with kids that were addicted to technology, and a lot of them came from very affluent families, which really impacted them because their parents weren't around. Their parents were working hard and trying to provide their families with the best things possible, which I can fully respect. But again, it's like that American mindset of work, 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 and neglect everything else, you know? And I could see that those kids were really impacted by their parents not being around, and their mental health was compromised because of that. And so they would go and seek affirmation and validation on social media or play Fortnite and love the reward from that, which is kind of how I loop back into what I was talking about earlier with games and social media and those surface level connections and affirmations. And it was a lot of like teaching the kids how to socialize with each other, teaching them a card game so that they can have a conversation during the card game and really get to know each other and get them outside, reconnect them with nature. And it was all through mental health. And they would have group therapy sessions and individual therapy sessions. And having those hard conversations is where you find out how you can help them. And it is so important to be able to have those conversations. And it starts with building trust. And like it's all, I think, greatly encompassed in mental health as a whole, is being able to have those conversations and healthy connections and being able to admit and even just acknowledge something that you may have been through.
How did you, like, what exactly did you do in this place where you help out people with technology addiction?
So at first it was a detox. And so they'd spend a couple weeks without technology. And if they did well, and they were involved in the games and in the sporting events and in the outdoor events, and they showed positive behaviors, a lot of them were very angry at first for being sent to the camp. They were angry at their parents and angry they didn't have their gaming systems, or angry they didn't have their phones and their friends. And they were forced to make friends with people they never would have even imagined being friends with. And not even really forced, but it's like they gravitated towards certain people that were very different from themselves. And so it was a beautiful thing to watch as the person that was kind of a liaison to helping them learn how to build these connections. And a lot of it was getting them outside and teaching them how to play volleyball, teaching them how to even swim. We had like swimming lessons, and
Wow.
getting them outside and even just going on walks with the kids, you know, teaching them about nature. And then they would come up and say, oh my gosh, Miss Olivia, look at this leaf, and I care about this now. And it was just really amazing. And they were focused on something other than technology, which was their main coping mechanism for their depression or anxiety or ADD or ADHD. And I worked with some of the kids that had ODD, which was very, very new to me. So it was incredible to watch them use other tools to manage their emotions and their behaviors. So
For those who don't know, ODD is a positional defined disorder, and just people that get very angry about with authority and authority figures, etc. So cool. I have read about these places where you get detox from technology, but I don't know that much about it. That's cool that you guys are doing that over there. And
yeah.
you told me you take them like on walks through nature, etc., which clearly is your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that you get a lot of really good moments in nature. You're the connection of nature and humans sounds like you can feel that.
Mm-hmm. It
Tell me a little bit
was
more about that.
so I don't know how much time you spent outside as a kid, and I mean everyone grew up differently, but that was kind of my escape as a kid from my mom when she would drink, was going outside and being in the grass and being in the leaves and catching butterflies and looking at ant hills and just finding peace among nature. And I know how therapeutic it was for me, and so finding that and kind of bringing the kids out into it, when these kids, a lot of them never really went outside. They never really played outside, you know, and at first they're complaining because it's hot and it's humid. And this camp actually took place in Asheville, where you were recently.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's humid there. It's so hot in the summertime, and there were no AC. There wasn't any AC or anything for us in the dorms that we were staying in at the camp. And the kids were just like grumpy and irritable at first, right? And so we'd get them outside, and you're almost promised an afternoon shower, right? Every single day around 3 o'clock in the Southeast. And so we ended up coming up with these games outside that we would play, where the kids would get tarps and they'd slide down this hill in the grass because the grass would be wet and slippery. And then they'd go and collect different types of leaves and twigs and stuff to make art out of. And so we're incorporating nature into art and into music as well. And they would play music outside, and they'd want to listen to TED Talks that were age appropriate and stuff. And we would do all those activities outside, and there would be a sense of peace and serenity when the kids would just want to sit in the grass, and they would be the ones asking, okay, can we go listen to a podcast out in the grass? Can we go talk about it? Like, can we talk about procrastination? Can we talk about responsibility? And like, this
These
was
are
when
little
we
kids
were
talking about that?
right,
Like, how old
right.
are they?
So they're between 11 and 17. A lot of the older kids were very reluctant, more so than the younger kids were, that are a bit more impressionable. But by the end of the summer, it was amazing to watch it and watch these kids, the older kids, kind of take the lead and want to be future camp counselors and want to do the same type of work because they saw how much it helped them to get outdoors and just have conversations with people and reconnect with nature and appreciate and understand it a little bit better. So
That's so cool.
yeah.
And then now you're doing diagnostics. So tell me, like, diagnostics of what?
So this is actually a new job that I'm actually starting tomorrow. But when I moved to Salt Lake City, I actually worked in the stem cell industry. And so it was processing birthing material to manufacture stem cells, right? And I worked in quality just to kind of make sure everything was in compliance with FDA and other regulatory bodies. And so very different realm of science. But where my master's kind of falls short is that it's very specific to conservation, which is a very difficult field to get into. And so I was like, all right, what can I do? I have a bit of lab experience. And I came out here and started working in the stem cell lab and kind of worked my way up into quality and used my ability to write well and to speak well and work well with others and collaborate with others into this position now. And I'm kind of moving on to a different company with a better opportunity in diagnostics. And they recently created a means of detecting coronavirus. So it's very, very innovative and very new and very exciting. So I'm looking forward to a new adventure with a new company.
So now I want to know what's this new way? How are they doing it?
So I don't exactly know all the ins and outs yet, and I don't know if I'm going to be signing an NDA and how much I would be
Oh,
able to
okay.
disclose about that. So
Gotcha.
I don't want to put myself in a bad position there. So
Hmm. Got it. Hmm. Well, good luck with that new job.
oh, thank
Hopefully
you.
you'll have fun with it. And you're in Salt Lake City, and I know that you're originally from the South. So
Yes,
how's that?
it's so different culturally. With the main and predominant religion being here is Mormonism and Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's a very different culture, and it's very enveloped in the city here and in the state of Utah. It's been very interesting, and everybody has been wonderful and nice. But I think that Salt Lake is kind of like a safe haven for those with more progressive ideas compared to the rest of the state of Utah. So I think a lot of those conservative ideas from back in the South kind of resonate here as well. But I love being able to see this kind of very progressive LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter movement here in Salt Lake has been very prevalent, which has been awesome to see. So it's just, I'm loving the no humidity. I'm loving the mountains, and the people here are great. The food is great. The beer is great. Life is good. So I'm loving it.
Hmm. It's nice. I was there once, well, but I didn't spend a long time in Salt Lake City. I was there for a couple of nights and then went to Park City, which I love. It's
Mm,
definitely my favorite place for snowboarding so far. But yeah, I guess I didn't go that deep into the cultural aspects of it, but it did look like a beautiful place. It looked like
mm-hmm.
a beautiful place nature-wise. It was amazing, super quiet, the mountains around the city, just like this beautiful thing.
It
Are you
is.
staying there forever? Like, what's your plan? I know that you want to connect with humans and your field. How do you want to do that?
Yeah, of course. So I've actually gotten two different volunteer positions, one with the Natural History Museum here and one with the zoo, working in animal handling and education. So I'm hoping to kind of shove my big foot and toe into the door of education again in biology and in science. So hopefully in the next couple of years, I'll be able to get a permanent position with either organization and solely work on education and connecting the general public and anybody else who wants to learn about nature and the native flora and fauna of Utah. There's a lot for me to learn. I'm still very new to all the rattlesnakes here and all the desert shrubs and everything else. So I'm hoping that's what ends up happening, and I hope to be here for a little bit longer. I think it has been hard, just with the big culture shift and leaving everything I know behind and all my friends
Mm.
and stuff. So, which I'm sure you completely understand. I feel like you're quite the nomad yourself. So,
Yeah, I get it. I'm originally from Ecuador, and
mm-hmm.
I pretty much left all my immediate family back in Ecuador for my career. I I don't know. I think that my career is so important to me that there's almost nothing that I wouldn't, except for my morals and my w- way of seeing life. I would probably be able to sacrifice anything else or everything
Mm-hmm.
else. And of course I love my family, and I talk with them all the time, and I see them at least once a year. I have friends all over the world, which is a good thing that I was in a school that promoted really just going to the best place you could go to do the thing that you wanted to do. And I've been lucky to have people here in the US or in Europe and even in Asia and South America. So there's almost no country I would go where I don't know a person at least, which I'm very happy about, and makes me excited about traveling, which is something I want to do
Mm-hmm.
too. I think that one of my goals in the next maybe 5 years is to become completely remote, location independent, so I can be wherever I want all the time while working without having to do a vacation to leave one specific city. But yeah, I get what you're saying. It is a hard transition at the beginning. I feel like it is, and then it becomes it becomes a lifestyle, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
and once you learn to love it, it's a beautiful lifestyle.
It is. So, do you think that you find that you have more surface level connections as opposed to deep since you have traveled so much, or have you found kind of the opposite?
Oh, the opposite. I don't think I would spend time with somebody I can't have a deep connection with. I just wouldn't do that to myself. I feel like that'd be a little bit of a torturous endeavor. Sometimes you have to, right? Like I can go say hi, like I can wave at somebody and have a deep conversation in the middle of the street all the time, right? Like there's some people that just don't want to do that. That's okay. They're just not going to be my close friends. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to hang out with you for a prolonged period of time, you have to be passionate and you have to be deep and you have to want to be around passionate and deep people, because everything that is around you will kind of like stick to you a little bit. So if I am surrounded with very passionate, deep, successful individual, that's gonna rub on me. And also the other way around. And I like that. So I make sure that I do that consistently.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. So friends in over there, how have you managed that?
Okay, so that has been very difficult. It seems like there is a huge counterculture here as well. That's very against the Mormon Church, and everybody has their own beliefs and way of life, and a lot of it is deep rooted in activity and outdoor activity here, and so it's like really kind of finding your niche has been very difficult for me. I'm not necessarily a big group person as far as friendships go. Like I have a lot of very close friendships that are kind of dispersed all over the Southeast, some in Greenville, some in Columbia, some in Charleston, some in Rock Hill and Charlotte area and in Georgia and places like that. And I think it's kind of been very similar here as well. I have a couple of neighbors that are quite a bit older than me, and I have learned so much from them. And they're just so wise beyond their years and so much fun to hang out with. And we'll get together, and we've kind of been pandemic partners safely, socially distanced as much as we can be, but we're in the same building and we're sharing the same germs. So that's been really good and really helpful, and a really good connection to have. And it's been hard though. It's been a lot of meeting people through mutual friends. So I got to meet a really wonderful person recently, and I met her through a friend that I knew in Boise, Idaho, that I had met like 6 or 7 years ago. And she's like, hey, I have this friend there in Salt Lake, get together with her, you guys would get along great. And now she's one of my best friends here. So it's definitely not the same type of connections as back home, like those long-term friendships yet, but those take time. They take nurturing and they take bumps in the road. So I just have to be a little bit more patient with myself and give myself some grace, because making friends in your adulthood is very difficult.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Especially, yeah, I lived in Denmark for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
it I feel like there are places where it's people are very extroverted and it's very easy to just engage and just start hanging out. And there are places where people are a little bit colder, a little bit more distant, and it makes me wonder whether it's like that a little bit in Utah.
Mm-hmm. It definitely feels that way. And I knew some friends here before I moved here that moved back east to South Carolina after about 6 months of living here. And well, they had lived here for 7 years, excuse me. But in the time that I just moved here, they were only here for the first 6 months of me living here. And they kept telling me, this is one of the hardest places that I've been able to make friends. It's been very difficult for me. And they lived here for 7 years. And they were just had started making very deep connections for themselves before they moved. So I didn't believe him. I was like, I can make friends with anybody. I can talk to anybody. I love talking to random people in coffee shops and out at the grocery store and on a walk at the park. Like I love talking to people, but people are very reserved here for the most part, unless you find the right people. So it's finding those right people in the midst of a pandemic. It's quite a challenge, but it's been good.
Yeah. Something else that you wrote here is something that brings your comprehensive wellness is moving your body. What do you mean?
Yes, getting outside, going for a hike, going cross country skiing when it's snow season here, getting the dog out, anything, going to the gym, even going to yoga. I need to move my body to keep my mind right.
That sounds like a fair point. So when I was younger, I was a little bit nerdier. I was studying all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I still do, but before I didn't exercise as much,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically when I started running, I have a few running friends, and they would always bug me and say, "Hey, come running with us, come running with us," and I would say, "No, that's for crazy people." And then yeah, and then but then I started doing it. We decided that we were all gonna run a marathon, and so I started training. And I hated it. But once I started hitting like 12 miles on one run,
Mm-hmm.
I started feeling so good. I started having this runner's high. I got addicted to it, and
Yeah.
it just completely changes my day. I go from like having an average, just wake up, oh, it's Monday, whatever. I start running, and then it's this beautiful day for the rest of the day. I feel so loving. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I can love any person that would come to me at the time. I will like smile and wave. Yeah, I know it's such an important thing. The physiological aspect of your well-being is so important. We totally neglect that. We're monkeys, right? Like we're descended
Right.
from monkeys. That these guys are outdoors 100% of the time. They're moving around. They're like playing with moving through the trees, trying to get some food for themselves. We got everything from our cell phone delivered to our apartment or house, depending on where we live in. And really, there's no need. You really have no need to leave your apartment if you don't need to. Especially now during the pandemic, it's become way easier to become way more still, not in a good
Mm-hmm.
way.
Right.
And yeah, that for sure has to affect people. And yeah, highly recommend to move and socialize. You got to socialize. We talked a
Mm-hmm.
little bit about that. I think having good relationships, talked a little bit about that, and having a goal of re, 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 we're all gonna die. You're gonna die, I'm gonna die, and there's gonna come a point where we're gonna be at the verge of death, laying on our beds, and we're gonna be thinking, either one of two things. We're gonna either be regretting something that we didn't do that we wish we had done, or we will very rarely regret about things we did, even though they were not great, as long as we learn from them. I
Mm-hmm.
think that the other option will be, oh, I'm so happy that I did everything that I felt like I needed to do this life. And that means going and doing those scary things that you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Maybe I'll like escape in whatever way escaping means to you. Okay, from exercise to
Mm-hmm.
like drinking to whatever it is that your way to avoiding reality becomes. That thing you gotta go do.
So, what's at the top of your bucket list then? What's the one thing that you want to accomplish before the end of your life?
Oh, there's several, but one that I can tell you right now is that
Yeah.
I'm doing two types of research. I'm doing COVID related research, and I'm doing a psychedelic assisted psychotherapy related research. And I
Mm-hmm.
really hope to contribute to society the or to discover. I guess that would be the best way to put it. To discover what the real benefits of psychedelics are in psychotherapy for cancer related existential distress. I really think it's promising. The evidence that we have so far is like it's so promising, unlike anything that we've ever seen. We don't know for sure. We need bigger trials, and I really am rooting for those bigger trials to happen. I think they will happen. I'm 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 doing my best to see if we can make those happen. And I'll be very happy if they do, and if I'm part of it, and we're able to contribute and find that they're incredibly useful. And if they are, I think they could change the way we approach mental health in terms of depression, anxiety, existential distress, alcohol use, uh, opioid addiction, pain. There's so much potential. We need the evidence, and I guess that's one of my biggest goals right now, to help gather the evidence.
That's amazing. That's the support that people need to move forward with medicine to be able to help people, you know? That's incredible.
What about you?
What about me? Oh man. I think if I can help anybody, even random strangers, find further understanding in nature, or maybe even provide them with understanding of something that they're afraid of, or just be kind of like a vessel for people's stress or anxiety or feelings or emotions, and kind of help them redirect that in a positive way, whether it's through nature or even a conversation. I think I've done my job here in my life, just helping people, because I know how much I feel like I needed it as a kid and it wasn't there for me. So
Yeah, sounds like that was rough for you.
yeah, it definitely was, but I think I'm able to use it and hopefully make the world a better place.
Yeah. That's nice. That's nice to hear. And I think on that note, we can end today's episode. Sounds like you are heading into the realm of helping others in different ways. But that sounds like something that is really driving your calling for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time and inviting me on here to talk with you and have you pick at my brain a little bit. It's been awesome. So I appreciate it.
From chaos to thrive.